Hello and welcome to Newsline. I'm Lina Pham.
And I'm Brian Pham, and here are the top story of the hour.
Vietnam television marks 55th anniversary of first broadcast.
5 years of the EVFTA implementation. Let's take a review of the impact it has on Vietnamese and European businesses.
And Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru announced resignation amidst rising in-party calls for a leadership change.
Welcome. September 7, 2025 marked the 55th anniversary of the first broadcast of Vietnam televisions, and Party General Secretary To Lâm attended the celebrations and presented VTV with a first-class label order.
And Brian, it's been also a very special day for us. The event marks the official launch of the national external television channel, Vietnam Today. And here we are, honored to be part of the collective effort that brought this channel to life.
On September 7, 1970, the first trial broadcast was successfully carried out, marking the birth of Vietnamese television. Through VTV's lens, the image of Vietnam's land and people, its renewal achievements, humanistic life, and cultural traditions have been vividly conveyed, helping guide public opinion, strengthen trust, and encourage the cause of national construction and defense. At the ceremony, Party General Secretary To Lâm awarded VTV the first-class labor order for its contributions to revolutionary journalism and extended his best wishes to generations of staff and employees.
Over 55 years, from modest technical conditions to becoming a national multimedia broadcaster, VTV has reflected diverse aspects of life, disseminated the party's guidelines and state policies, spread renewal, fought corruption, and recommended policy improvements. From black and white broadcasts to the VTV Go application, and today, the national external channel, Vietnam Today, VTV's journey has left important milestones. On this occasion, I present Vietnam television with these words: for everyone, anytime, anywhere, sharp and engaging. Over the past 55 years, you have served everyone, anytime and anywhere.
The party chief requested that VTV, as Vietnam's key multimedia broadcaster in the current period, must be a pillar of social trust, the reliable voice of the party, state and people, and a pioneer on the ideological and cultural front. Also at the ceremony, party and state leaders pressed the button to launch Vietnam Today, which went on air after a short preparation period thanks to the determination and dedication of VTV staff.
And also on the occasion of the official launch of Vietnam Today, ambassadors, representatives of international organizations and media outlets have extended their congratulations.
Yes, and they certainly set a high expectation for the news channels and show they're confident in its importance and success. And now let's share their views.
It would be valuable if the channel's content could place Vietnam in context with other countries, so we can better understand where the country stands. This would encourage knowledge sharing and help Vietnam open up further to the world, while benefiting from the global developments that all nations are pursuing for their own economic and social growth.
If it's possible that your new channel can actually make that bridge to ensure that in a language that is common to us all, give us the updates, the news insights, but also the cultural upbringing and heritage of this country.
I think it is great news to have an English-only channel in order to reach out to the foreigners in Vietnam who may not all understand Vietnamese and follow Vietnamese news, but also to project the views of the Vietnamese people across the world.
It was needed long ago, and it finally happened, and I couldn't be happier with that, because this is something that not just Vietnam needs. This is something that the world needs, because the Russians and the other countries now have a chance to understand Vietnamese perspective on where to move in this changing world.
When I first see it, I feel a strong sense of connections. It presents, like I said, everything in Vietnam. You know, even people who never been to Vietnam, they can learn about Vietnam through your channels, since you present almost every angle of Vietnam.
Today, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính attended the ceremony marking the 80th anniversary of the Voice of Vietnam, VOV, and the broadcaster third conferment of the Ho Chi Minh Order. Party General Secretary Tô Lâm sent flowers, a congratulatory letter, and a statue of President Ho Chi Minh, while State President Lương Cường and National Assembly Chairman Trần Thanh Mẫn also sent floral tributes. Congratulating VOV on this prestigious honor, the Prime Minister expressed gratitude to generations of journalists, editors, technicians, artists, and staff who have shaped the broadcaster's proud 80 years history. He recalls September 7, 1945, the VOV aired its first broadcast with the historic words, "This is the Voice of Vietnam," broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam.
And from honoring a historic milestone in Vietnam's Voice of Vietnam and Vietnam television to looking at the present outlook for the economy, Vietnam's socio-economic performance continued to improve in August, with the first 8 months of the year outperforming the same period last year. This progress was announced at the government's regular monthly meeting chaired by Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính on September the 6th. Vietnam's macroeconomy has remained stable and inflation is under control. Industrial output rose 8.5%, total trade reached nearly $600 billion, and state budget revenue exceeded nearly $70 billion. FDI hit more than $26 billion, the highest in 5 years, while disbursed FDI rose nearly 9%. The Prime Minister assigned senior officials to step up oversight of the banking sector and emphasized the importance of channeling capital into production and business.
And now let's take a closer look at economic developments. Last August marked 5 years since the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreements came into effect. Quite journey, wouldn't you say, Lena?
Exactly, absolutely. And Brian, over the past 5 years, despite global challenges from geopolitical tensions to the COVID-19 pandemic, the EVFTA has truly proven its value. It's been a powerful driver of stronger economic ties and solid growth between Vietnam and the EU. According to preliminary data from the General Statistics Office, from August 2020 to May 2025, bilateral trade reached nearly $300 billion. That's nearly 40% of the total accumulated trade volume between the EU and Vietnam over the past 30 years. This milestone has elevated Vietnam to the EU's top trading partners in ASEAN and its 16th largest globally. And the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement doesn't just reduce tariffs, it's gradually phasing them out on most goods traded between the two sides. But Brian, what other opportunities will the EVFTA bring to both sides?
Yes, and beyond tariff cuts, the EVFTA has opened wider market access, strengthened intellectual property protections, and encouraged greater regulatory transparencies. And altogether is creating a more favorable environment for businesses to seize new trade opportunities.
In France, one of Vietnam's largest export markets in the EU, made in Vietnam products are not only more diverse on the store shelves, but also increasingly competitive on price. For this experienced importer of Vietnamese food and handicrafts, The EVFTA has pushed businesses to comply more rigorously with EU origin rules, giving Vietnamese agricultural products a stronger foothold in the French market.
Gradually, businesses aiming to export to France have had to learn the details of growing area planning, product traceability, and coding. Now more certified growing regions are being established, making origin verification clearer. As a result, Vietnamese products enter France quicker and with smoother custom procedures. Product quality is now higher and more consistent.
For European businesses, the EVFTA provides access to a market of more than 100 million consumers and a skilled workforce, positioning Vietnam as a strategic destination for deeper integration into global supply chains and long-term market presence. According to the latest Business Confidence Index published by EuroCham in the second quarter of 2025, 66% of surveyed companies are actively trading between the EU and Vietnam. Nearly all respondents reported at least some familiarity with the EVFTA.
A lot of the products that European companies sell are complex, technologically advanced goods, and the access to market and the time it takes to market these in Vietnam is just longer. European companies will gain more and more foothold in Vietnam. As the market develops in Vietnam, it will also be more and more ready for advanced European consumer goods, etc.
As we see clearly, the EVFTA has created strong foundations for trade and investment between Vietnam and the EU.
And that's right, Brian. And to get more insights on how European businesses in Vietnam view these opportunities, let's hear from Mr. Bruno Jaspaert, Chairman of the European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam. Our reporter Linh Chi sat down with him to talk about what lies ahead.
Hello, Mr. Jaspaert. Thank you so much for taking your time in this interview. 5 years after the EVFTA took effect, what concrete gains have European businesses seen in Vietnam as a direct result of this agreement?
I believe data trumps all other proof. And in this case, it's very clear that there has been an uptake of roughly 40% of trade between Vietnam and Europe. And that, no doubt, is a direct consequence of establishing this free trade agreement between both. Now, having said that, the free trade agreement is spread out over 10 years. So as such, we're halfway. We've done a lot of it, but perhaps the biggest impact is still yet to come. For European investors, it will be much more interesting and faster and easier to bring their products into Vietnam without further red tape or tariff.
Do you think the EVFTA has opened up new sectors or higher value investment opportunities for European businesses here in Vietnam?
For sure, they have opened up new markets, but I believe the biggest markets are perhaps still yet to come. For example, public transport, rail. I think Europe is very strong. Renewable energy is one of the strongholds of Europe. I believe with the new PDP-8 and the new decree and guidance on how to interpret the PDP-8, I believe that is changing very rapidly. And I would expect in the next years to come a very big increase in terms of investments for renewable energy. Other than that, I believe semiconductors, there's a niche sector in Europe that is doing very well in semiconductors.
In your opinion, to what extent could the positive outcomes of the EVFTA encourage or facilitate the ratification and implementation of the EVIPA by other EU member states in the coming time?
Over time, the benefits of the EVTFA are very clear. And that means that within that free trade agreement, it will, in the end, be the biggest motivation for countries to sign. My expectation is that the member states that have not yet signed will do before that 10-year period lapses, because if not, they are cut out of the advantages. The free trade agreement between Europe and Vietnam is actually the ultimate pioneer, and it shows that trade does make stability happen. Trade ensures prosperity. I am very proud that step by step, over the years that we still have left in this agreement, we will be able to show to the world that it does work, and that a multilateral world where parties actually respect each other and try to help each other is a world much better off than a world governed by tariffs.
Once again, thank you so much for your sharings.
The pleasure has been mine.
And as noted by expert and industry representative, in a time of rising protectionisms and growing uncertainties in global trade, effectively leveraging the EVFTA not only enabled Vietnam and the EU to deepen their cooperation, but also reaffirm their pioneering role in promoting trade liberalizations and sustainable development in the years ahead. Coming up next,
Japanese Prime Minister resigns. And later on, cancer vaccine getting ready. You're watching Newsline, and moving on to some global news. So what do you have for us, Brian?
yes, quite a lot of things happened in the past couple of hours. In Japan, Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru announced his resignations amidst rising in-party calls for leadership change. The Liberal Democratic Party plans to decide tomorrow, September 8th, whether or not to vote for new leadership. Experts say Prime Minister Ishiba seeks to avoid party infighting by making early resignations announcement before submitting his formal written registrations on September 8th.
Right, Brian. So who are the front runners that succeed him?
Yes, two names are standing out. Agriculture Minister Koizumi Shiziro and Senator